Aloha and welcome back to Live at the Legislature, where every week we speak with members of the legislative, members of the House and Senate to talk about the pressing issues here at the state capitol. With us today to talk about a number of hot button issues is Representative Gene Ward. He's the minority leader representing District 17 from Hawaii Kai all the way to Kalama Valley. Good morning, Rep. Ward.
Good morning, Kyle.
So before we get into the bigger hot button issues, let's say, what were your thoughts on the senator's comments earlier about the stadium?
Everybody's thinking about the Super Bowl, and I think this is good, kind of the minority response to Senator Wakai and the stadium proposal, which was, I agree with everything except for one thing, and that was what he failed to mention. Everybody who saw the Super Bowl saw the huge Mercedes-Benz logo. They pay big money for naming rights, and there's no reason why taxpayers should have to pay all of the funds for this $250 or $300 billion. So naming rights have got to be in there. Public-private partnerships have got to be in there, and there's no reason why it should be all on the taxpayer's burden. It's $30 million to just get the thing back to running. I agreed with all that. We should have a multiple, whether it's hotels or other sports complex. But the fact is that the Mercedes Center is where the Pro Bowl was. Everybody knows why did they do that? Well, it's because they paid good money. And there's no reason why Hawaiian Airlines, Qatar Ford, or Mercedes themselves could come in and do naming rights and call it Mercedes Aloha Bowl or the Mercedes or the Qatar Aloha Stadium, et cetera. I think that's wise use of taxpayers' money, and it's done all over the mainland. He mentioned the Stapleton Center. Why should we not do it? We should be the sports center of the Pacific. That was the other thing. We should have all the different sports from soccer, golf, even as he said, the monster cars. So well done, Senator Wakai, but get naming rights into that bill so we can save taxpayers some money.
Transitioning into another economic issue, the biggest one probably is going to be the minimum wage this year.
Oh, by the way, I thought you were going to say whether I won my bet on the Super Bowl.
Did you win your bet on the Super Bowl?
I won lunch from my daughter. But it was a great game.
Awesome.
It shows you the importance of playing defense.
Absolutely. So back to the minimum wage, there are two big issues. There was one heard on Thursday, which originally raised the wage up to 17 and then gave credits for businesses that provided the prepaid health care. The second being allowing the counties to set their own minimum wage standards. So this is something that I think you should know quite a bit about given your business background. So maybe explain a little bit of that before we get into the issue itself.
Well, for 15 years, my wife and I were retailers at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel selling resort wear clothing. My wife is a designer, not only clothing, but now she's an interior designer. So I know what the minimum wage can do, what it can't do. And as I said in my opening day speech, if we are not doing it reasonable or in increments, we're going to have four consequences. The first of which is going to be a job killer. Those who are employers are either going to cut wages or literally cut jobs. That is not good. Our mom and poppers are already having a bit of a wobbly future. The second thing is that it's going to be the cost of living going to go up because the businesses have to pass it on to customers. So those who already know the cost of living is choking them and causing them to leave, it's going to hurt all the more from that. The third thing is it's going to encourage AI, artificial intelligence. It's going to bring on the robots. You know, we've got some of these places on the mainland that are totally fast foods run by robots. Elon Musk, the unions, everybody is aware of this. I've even introduced a bill for an AI task force sort of to monitor what's going on in artificial intelligence. And quite frankly, do we want the robots to take over? Or do we want the mainland chains that can afford higher wages to take over? And lastly, and this is probably the most important, market forces are already now adjusting the minimum wage upward. There are not enough people out there. There's the supply that's very low on talented and capable employees. They're stealing them from one another. And because of that, they're setting wages up. Just a fast food the other day was starting out at $12 to $13 just for getting first-time wait staff. So the market, the AI, the cost of living, and the job cutting really says we should be very careful and very sensitive about what we do with the minimum wage.
So given that the minimum wage is sort of a reaction to Hawaii's super high cost of living, a lot of working folks are having a hard time, making ends meet. What is the minority doing, or what have they been doing to also address this issue in a different way?
We think there should be a training wage. There should be wages where people can get on-the-job training. We have a bill that says, and stay home, you can get vocational training or training on a business, the way they do it in Switzerland, in effect where you don't have to go to college. And because of that, you can get training within the context of a business. But the businesses, because they have to pay high wages, may be reluctant to train people. And because of that, their education will be set aside.
And another thing that the minority has been introducing for almost since I've been alive is exempting GET from food and medicine. And most recently, you folks just introduced also exempting feminine hygiene products from the GET. Why has this taken so long to become law?
And why has it not been heard so far, and why is it not gaining traction? Because somehow the voracious appetite of tax and spend in the state of Hawaii still makes food, which is a necessity for living, taxable. Medical services and I can't imagine feminine hygiene products having a tax on them. So these are things that we continually introduce, continually stick with. These are the right things to do. And when we talk about the poor who can't afford and have the high cost of living, well, we're just bumping the cost of living by making sure that they pay the GET tax, which is very, very regressive. Anytime we play with that tax, it's very regressive on the poor.
Transitioning very quickly, we've got a minute and a half left. There's a bill being heard today at 205, HB 1383, and that will be to decriminalize marijuana or cannabis. So I know that this is an issue that's sort of, diversity of opinion among the caucus itself, but what are your initial thoughts?
Well, we're flirting with, I think, putting a nosedive into our youth. Why I say that, half of the polls that I've seen, and even in my district, half are for it, half against it. So I would speak for the 750,000 people, half of the population of Hawaii, who are against it. Because I think it's a dangerous thing to disincentivize our youth for the sake of what otherwise seems to be a trend going nationally. But people probably don't know this, that California has 3/4 of their cities opting out of their decriminalization recreational marijuana. So a lot of people are saying, this is probably not good. We have 43% of, this is the Mothers Against Drunk Driving, 43% of all fatalities on our roads are drug related. We want to have more people, carnage on the highway. Let's legalize marijuana. It's a bad thing. It fries the brain, particularly when those youth people who are spending 9 hours on their phone every day, you put them in enough to size them with weed, marijuana, it's going to be all the more taking the zest out of life. Right now, there's always an increased suicide rate among our youth. The hopelessness and the kind of wandering around, I think this is the worst thing. Let the medical marijuana be, which I'm for, but for the legalization for our young people, it's the wrong way to go.
And for those wondering, that's HB 1383, which will be heard at 205 today in room 325.
I hope people will weigh in.
Rep. Ward, thank you for your time, and thank you to the viewers at Olelo. We will see you next week.